أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to G4 Holy Qur'an Recitation Class for Muta'allimat. As you know, the main purpose and objective of this course is to enrich the students with the knowledge of correct pronunciation of the Holy Qur'an with tajweed, how to apply these rules as far as possible. So we will call more participants in the mic, and I want all of you to be ready. Inshallah, we will give everybody a chance. And the other purpose of these classes is to make everyone develop, more courage and enthusiasm to teach the Holy Quran to others. We will now begin our class with the Holy Recitation. Can I please request this ST to give me a student?
Could I please request G4 703 to unmute?
G4 703, Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Can you begin the tilawat with Awz and Tasmiyah?
जी أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربنا أتمم لنا نورنا واغفر لنا إنك على كل شيء قدير. In the name of Allah, the gracious, ever merciful, our Lord, perfect our light for us and forgive us. Surely, Thou hast power over all things. Jazakallah.
Jazakallah, very well recited. I just had 2 points that I wanted to mention. One was first that there was a break in the middle, and when we do breaks in a verse, we will try to repeat a couple of words. It's a waqf rule. So if you had you had broken over here, you would start again from waqfir lana innaka.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
I forgot.
No worries. And one over here was, I think this is a thin sound.
Yeah.
So just,
okay.
yes, exactly. Right. Jazakallah.
Okay. Jazak.
Next, can I have a student for Hadith, please?
Could I please request G4 726 to unmute, please?
G4 726, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Can you start the Hadith with Durood Sharif, please?
Yep. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammadin kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Allahumma barik ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammadin kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. An Abi Lubabata Bashir ibn Abdil Munziru radiyallahu anhu أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال من لم يتغن بالقرآن فليس منا. Hazrat Abi Musa radiallahu anhu narrates that the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the one who does not recite the Quran melodious, not from among us. For example, not on our way. Sorry, I can't read Al-Bukhari number, I can't read the number, sorry.
Okay. Can we have-
7527. Jazakallah.
Yeah, Jazakallah Jaza. Next, can I please have a student for Malfuzat?
Could I please request G4736 to unmute?
G4736, Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Sayings of the promised Messiah alayhi salam. Study the Quran with deep contemplation else. God has said to me, meaning, all good is contained in the Quran. This is the truth. Pity those who favor anything besides it. The fountainhead of all your prosperity and salvation lies in the Quran. Jazakallah.
Jazakallah Jaza. And now I will hand over to the TA for a quiz.
Assalamu alaikum. So let's begin our today's quiz. You can raise your hand and then ST will unmute you if required. So question 1. When is a letter called mushaddad? A, when it carries fatha, B, when it carries dhamma, C, when it carries shadda, and D, when it carries sukoon. ST, can I have a student, please?
I'd like to mute G4739.
G4739, Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. It's C when it carries shadda.
C, let's see the answer. When it carries shadda. Yes, you are right. Well done. Number 2. How many commandments are given in the Quran according to the promised Messiah alayhi salam? A, 300, B, 700, C, 650, and D, 750. ST, can I have a student, please?
Yes, G4703.
G4703, Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. G, B option.
Option B, 700 commandments. Let's see the answer. Yes, you're right. So there are 700 commandments given in the Quran according to promised Messiah alayhi salam. Jazakallah. Question 3. How many times is the word Allah repeated in the last 3 surahs? A, 2 times, B, 3 times, C, 4 times, or D, 5 times. ST, can I have a student?
Yes. We don't have any raised hands, so could I request G4? Oh, we do. G4720.
G4720, Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. I think it's A2.
Let's see the answer. Sorry, this is 5 times the word Allah is repeated in the last 3 surahs. Surah Nas, Surah Falaq, and Surah Ikhlas. Moving on to the last question.
There's still question number 4.
Sorry, question 4. What was the first word revealed to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in the Holy Quran? A, Iqra, B, Alhamdulillah, C, Bismillah, or D, Utlu. ST, can I have a student, please?
Yes. Could I request G4756 to unmute?
G4756.
Assalamu alaikum. A.
A, yes, you are right. It's the word Iqra, first word revealed. And the last question. Which of the following chapters or surahs does not pose a question at the beginning? A, chapter 107, Al-Ma'un, B, chapter 78, An-Naba, C, chapter 105, Al-Fil, or D, chapter 75, Al-Qiyamah. ST, can I have a student?
Yes, G4757.
G4757, Assalamu alaikum.
What? Why something like option B, chapter 78?
Option B is not the right answer. It's actually option D, chapter 75, Al-Qiyamah. Jazakallah for that. I will hand over to the DT.
Jazakallah. So it's time for lesson number 3. and our lesson for today is about ishbaya. So as you can see, I have 3 types of ishbaya rules on front. Fatha ishbaya, that's when the stroke of fatha is vertically placed over a letter, and it's called vertical fatha. As you can see over here, I have ra, and there is a vertical fatha, or you can also tell it as vertical as fatha ishbaya, and I have to prolong it for 2 seconds. Ra, as you can see, for 2 seconds. Next, we have kasra ishbaya. When the stroke of kasra is vertically placed below a letter, it is called vertical kasra. Here we have an example of letter ba, and underneath it, we have a stroke of vertical kasra, and we'll pronounce it as B. And in the third example, we have damma ishbaya. When the stroke of simple damma is placed invertedly over a letter, it's called inverted damma. An example for that is seen, and we have an inverted damma, and I'll pronounce it su. Inverted and vertical strokes, or short vowels as you would call them, they are called ishbaya. And they're called ishbaya because you stretch the sound of a letter to 2 counts or 2 beats. And that's really important. You do not pronounce it less than 2 seconds or more than 2 seconds. It's exactly for 2 seconds. These are the shortened forms of haruf al-madda, letters of elongation or letters of prolongation, which you will inshallah learn in the next classes. And that's why we are teaching you about ishbaya. So again, how much time should one give to manifest these signs in reading? It should be only for 2 seconds or 2 counts and 2 beats, approximately. Moving on, as I've told you before, these are more examples of inverted and vertical strokes. In Surah Al-Adiyat, the full surah, Wal-Adiyati Dabhan, you have several examples of ishbaya rules. You will have examples of inverted damma, you will have example of vertical fatha or vertical kasra. So first one, as you can see over here, I have vertical fatha on top of dal, and this vertical fatha is pronounced like I have an alif over there. The pronunciation should be like an alif, like how you hear it in haruf al-mad. So this means I need to prolong it for 2 seconds. Yadahu. The next one again, faliqu. Moving on next, we can see examples of both vertical fatha and vertical kasra. I have highlighted vertical kasra, and this basically indicates the sound of vav sakin to show that it needs to be prolonged for 2 seconds as well. Alif and ya both again have vertical fatha on top, so I'll pronounce it as ayatihi. Next example, biyadihi. And then we have an example of inverted damma. And inverted damma again shows when an inverted damma is placed, it shows the sound of vav sakin. So again, it will be prolonged and rounded into for 2 seconds. Mala'ahu, falahu, kitabahu. Inshallah, we will practice this later on. Now I'm coming towards another example for practice and revision. Before I call students to mic, I'll just quickly go through some of them. In the red box that's highlighted over here, you can see similar sounding letters. As you know from our previous lessons, lesson number 1, you can watch it on YouTube as well. Everything is mentioned there. I told you about certain letters are pronounced with a thick sound and broad sound called tafkhim letter. These are highlighted here in red, whereas some letters are pronounced with a thin sound or soft sound, tarqiq letters. And again, also I had mentioned about haruful halqi, which are the throat letters like alif or hamza, ain, ghain, ha, kha, and all of these sounded letters are different, but we need to practice and see how it's different. For example, if I read from here, this is Hamza with the vertical kasra. It will be read as E. And then next, I have Ain. It has a vertical fatha. So that's a difference in here. Again, if I go at the top, I have Dal, and then I have Dod. Do. So these are similar sounding letters, but we have to be very careful how we pronounce them. Next, if I go towards the yellow box, we have to apply the 1 second or 2 second rule. As you know, in the previous classes, the 1 second rule was for short vowels, fatha, damma, kasra. And in this class, we are doing ishbaya rule, and that's for 2 seconds. Over here, we have examples of both. Maliki, saja, and so forth. Moving on to our last practice for today would be revision between ishbaya and ghunna rules. Ghunna, you had this in the previous lesson. You learned about it. And ishbaya, together you can see how it will be pronounced. Both of them are going to be prolonged for 2 seconds. Ishbaya for 2 seconds and huruf ghunna for 2 seconds as well in red. However, remember, it needs to be prolonged with a nasal sound. Example, biyannahu. So the thing to note here is 2 seconds for nasal sound and 2 seconds for ishbaya. That's the vertical fatha on top. So in total 4 seconds. Biyannahu. We have inverted dhamma here as well. Next one as well, I'll read for you. فَسَوَّاهُنَّ. So, ST, can I kindly request for a student, please?
Could I please request G4719 to unmute?
G4719, Assalamu alaikum. G4719.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Can you recite the following examples for me?
Okay.
Start from the first row.
Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. The first line.
Yes.
يداه فالق ثلاث قاتل رآه آدم عالم عالم قال آياته بيده عمله به إلاف هذه إلاف هذه آله قبله قبله ملأه فلأه
Can you repeat that?
كتاب
Can you repeat this one?
فلأه
Yes.
فلأه
Falahu.
sorry falahu
Jazakallah, yes. G4 719, are you still there?
Allahu yarahu ma'ahu yarahu wuriya duburahu.
Jazakallah, mashallah, you have recited very well, except for one or two mistakes, which once I highlighted, you rectified yourself. So mashallah, keep it up, Jazakallah.
Thank you. Jazakallah.
Next, can I please have one more student?
May I request G4737 to unmute?
G4 737, Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Can you first recite first line of similar sounding letters from here?
A'udzu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ti, tu, si, su, si, su, he, who.
Okay, so this is more throaty letter, so you can do it with the more from your throat. He, who.
He, who.
Nice try. Next, can you recite the first line of from here? And you remember to apply 1 second and 2 second rule correctly.
Maliki, Asari, Asari, Kutuwati, Azara.
Yes, and next line as well.
Saja, Qala, Fa'awa, Fahada, Asaraka, Ayatuka, Atahumu, Fa'atahumu, Bi'ayati, Ilafi, Samarihi, Fara'ahu.
Yeah, just not more than 2 seconds. Fara'ahu.
Fara'ahu.
Jazakallah. And one last line from here.
Huwallahu alladhi la ilaha illa huwa.
Jazakallah. Could you recite it again, this time with remembering to prolong the vertical and fatha?
Huwallahu alladhi la ilaha illa huwa.
Jazakallah. Very nice recitation. And mostly everything was correct. Just over here, la ilaha. And over here, you can see we have haruf al-mad. So huwallahu alladhi. Again, this needs to be prolonged as well. Inshallah, in the next class, you will learn more about it. So jazakallah for trying. Next, can I have another student, please?
Yes. Could I please request G4749 to unmute?
G4749, Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Can you recite from the first line, remembering the rules of Ishbaya and Gunna?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم بيجناه فسواهن أمهاتكم اللهم لتبيننه لتبلون أجلهن إحداهن فثم وجه ولكنكم لتنصرنه صدقاتهن.
Can you repeat this word again?
صدقاتهن يتوفاهن كسوتهن.
Jazakallah. Very well recited, mashallah. And it was really melodious. The only point, it's not a mistake, it's just the pronunciation. I just was looking. So, you know, this kaf, just be very careful not to pronounce it with the other thick letter qaf. You know, while you're reciting in a melodious tune, sometimes slightly it can change. So other than that, mashallah, you pronounce the ishbaya rule and gunna rule very good. And the only thing, it's just my own opinion, is that when you have tashdid, try to stress it because gunna, tashdid means to stress. And this is harufi gunna, but there's also tashdid, and you have attached it very nicely. But next time, stress it even more loudly. Walakin, like this, more loudly. You have done it very well, but I would just like you to do it even more loudly next time. Jazakallah. Now I would like to hand over to the TA for the surah practice.
Jazakallah DT. Let me share my screen. Before we start the surah practice, can I please remind everyone to double check your IDs, make sure that you are logged in with your correct ID and not with your name. Jazakallah. So in today's class, in today's surah practice, we'll be practicing verses 7 to 9 of Surah Al-Fatir. So ST, can I have a student, please?
Yes, could I please request G4702 to unmute?
G4702, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Could you start with Tawuz and Tasmiyah, please?
Yes. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Sorry, I can't see the top because it shows your view. Can you scroll it a bit down because I can't yet?
Is this better?
Yes. Inna shaytana lakum aduvun fattakhizuhu adumva. Innama yad'u hisbahu liyakunu min ashabis sa'ir.
Jazakallah. I'd like to make a few corrections. So here I think you did not round this ra. So this is a thick ra, so you need to round it. So Nir-Rahim. Okay?
Yes.
And in this verse, because remember we practiced the noon mushaddad, so when you're joining alif with this noon, you need to make sure that it is a sustained nasal sound for about 2 seconds, and you need to stress on this noon mushaddad and the sheen mushaddad as well. So it will be inna shaytana. Okay?
Yes.
Could you read this word again?
Inna shaytana.
Inna shay.
Inna shay.
Jazakallah, that was much better. And here, because you are making a pause here, so could you read this word again for me?
Aduva.
Again, because it's waw is carrying a shadda on top, so you need to stress on waw.
Aduwa.
Yes, aduwa. And I think on this lam, you prolonged it for more than it was needed, so you only need to have it for 1 second.
Yeah.
Lakum.
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 Okay. Yeah.
And again on this word as well, you prolonged ya for 2 counts, whereas you only need to do for 1 count, because remember this is a short stroke. So liyakunu.
Liyakunu.
And could you recite from here to here, please?
Ashabis Sa'id.
Ashabis Sa'ir.
Ashabis Sa'ir.
Because remember this ayn is a throat letter, so it should be pronounced from the middle of the throat. So ayr.
Yeah.
Jazakallah for reading and coming on the mic. ST, can I have another student, please?
Yes, could I please request G4724 to unmute?
G47, sorry, what was the 7?
724, G4724.
G4724, Assalamu alaikum.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
From here.
الذين كفروا اللهم عذاب شديد والذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات لهم مغفرة لهم مغفرة وأجر كبير.
Jazakallah. So I've highlighted a few corrections to be made here. So, you know, when you're reading this dhal, so make sure this is not a clear like a Z sound. This should be like alladhina. So it's like the tip of your tongue when it touches your upper front part of your upper teeth. So that's how you pronounce it. Alladhina.
الذين.
And on this one, I think you said Allahum, but because this alif is a blank alif, so you ignore this alif and it will be kafaru lahum.
كفروا لهم.
And do you know what's the waqf rule on ta?
Is it that you pause?
Yes, so it's a compulsory stop, so you need to pause here. So shadid.
Okay.
And here as well, I think the ayn sound wasn't very well. So this should be from the middle of the throat. Amilu salihat.
عالم الصالحات.
Jazakallah. And do you know which rule is applied on this meme?
I'm not sure. Is it the gunna?
Yes, it is the gunna, because in our last class we practiced the meme mushaddat and noon mushaddat rule. So do you remember how many seconds do we prolong this meme mushaddat for?
2.
2 seconds. So jazakallah. So just remember this, that should be 2 seconds nasal sound. Jazakallah. Let's move on to verse number 9. ST, can have a student.
Could I please request G4744 to unmute?
G4744, Assalamu alaikum.
وعليكم السلام. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
So before we start the verse, can I just remind, because the word Allah is followed by the kasra letter, right? B. So then there is no need to round this lam. So it will be billah. Okay, so you want to read this one because there was also kasra before the word Allah.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Jazakallah, that was better. So let's start verse 9 from here.
Afaman zuyyina lahu su'u amalihi fara'ahu hasan فإن الله يذل من يشاء يهدي من يشاء فلا تذهب نفسك عليهم حسرات إن الله عليم بما يصنعون.
Jazakallah. On this ra, make sure, because ra is a thick ra, so you need to round it. So fara'ahu. Okay. And this one, because we are making a pause on ta. So I think you read as Hassan, or I couldn't remember. So you need to prolong it, pronounce it with one alif. So Hasana.
Okay.
Could you recite from fara'ahu to Hasana? Sorry.
Fara'ahu hasana.
Jazakallah. And what do we do on this sile? Do we stop or do we continue?
You can stop or you can continue as you maybe.
Yeah, so if you're running out of breath, you can pause, but it's better not to stop here because sile means to connect or to link.
Okay.
I think that was it. This one, do you remember which Ishbaya stroke is this one on her? Is it the vertical fatha, vertical kasra, or inverse dhamma?
Inverse dhamma.
Inverse dhamma, so it's a dhamma Ishbaya, right?
Yeah.
So what is the rule for this one?
2 second prolong.
Yes, 2 second prolonged. Jazakallah. Jazakallah for coming on the mic. So ST, can I have another student, please?
Yes, could I please request G4730 to unmute?
G4730, Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الشيطان لكم عدو فاتخذوه عدوا إنما يدعو حزبه ليكونوا من أصحاب السعير.
Jazakallah, that was good. Could you tell me which rule do you apply on this noon?
Is noon guna?
So it's a gunna rule, but it's a noon mushaddad, right?
Yes.
Do you remember the rule for noon mushaddad?
Yes, it's prolong it for 2 seconds.
Yes, it's a sustained nasal sound for 2 seconds, and you applied it good here, so well done for that. And also Jazakallah for applying the jerk sound on the dal because it's one of the iqlab letters. And just one thing I wanted to mention, could you recite from Ashabi?
Yeah. Ashabi Sa'ir.
Yeah, this is better, Jazakallah. Just wanted to make sure that you are stressing on the letter seen. Jazakallah for coming on the mic. ST, can I have another student?
Could I please request G4747 to unmute?
G4747, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Could you start with Tawaz and Tasmiyah?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الذين كفروا لهم عذاب شديد والذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات لهم مغفرة وأجر كبير.
Jazakallah. Could you tell me whether we meant to stop on this ta or do we continue?
Oh, I'm not sure.
Okay, so ta is a compulsory stop, so you need to make sure that you stop on this word shadid.
Okay.
And here, I did not quite hear you. Could you recite this word again for me from lahum?
Okay. Lahum magfiratun wa hajrun kabir.
Okay, so on this tanween, we're on letter ta. You don't need to pronounce tun and then wa. You need to join this ta with this wow. So it'll be tumwa with a nasal sound. Tumwa.
Okay.
Could you try again?
Okay. Lahum magfiratun wa ajrun kabir.
Jazakallah, that was great. And we haven't learned the rule of ikhfa yet, but when we see tanween or noon sakin, we need to look at the letter after that. If that letter belongs to the rule of ikhfa, then we do not pronounce the tanween. We instead hide the sound of noon. So it'll be ajrun kabir. We'll learn this rule inshallah in the upcoming classes.
Okay, sure.
Jazakallah for coming on the mic. ST, can I have another student?
Jazakallah.
Jazakallah.
Could I please request G4761 to unmute?
4761. Assalamualaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أفمن زهين له يوه عمله فرآه حسنا فإن الله يضل من يشاء ويهدي من يشاء فلا تذهب نفسك عليهم حسرات إن الله عليم بما تصنعون.
Jazakallah for reading. So I've highlighted a few things here. So the first one, it's the letter ja. So when you join with zal, so you need to make sure that you're stressing and clearly reading the letter ja. So zujina.
Zuyina.
Yes, Jazakallah. And on this one, this is the letter sin, so it'll be su because it is the huruful mad, so it needs to be prolonged for up to 4 to 6 seconds. And on this one, because we are making a pause here on this ta, so we will not read it as the tanween, full tanween, we'll read as one fatha. So hasana. And I think on this word, you forgot to do the kalkula rule on ba. So tadhhab, you need to make a jerking sound on the letter ba.
Tazhab.
Yes, Jazakallah. And on this one, it's hasarat, not ra, but because it's a ta, so we'll stop there as hasarat.
Oh, hasarat.
And this was not ta because this is 2 dots at the bottom, right? So it's yasnaun, yeah, not ta.
Yes, bima yasnaun. Yeah.
Yeah, jazakallah.
Jazakumullah.
And jazakallah for coming on the mic.
Jazakumullah.
ST, can I have a student, please?
Yes, could I please request G4714 to unmute?
G4714, assalamu alaikum. G4714.
Okay, no worries. Could I please request G4741 to unmute?
G4741, assalamu alaikum. G4741. Okay, ST, can I have another student?
Yes, could I please request G4754 to unmute?
G4754. Assalamu alaikum. Wa alaikum assalam. Wa alaikum assalam. Could you start with Tawuz and Tasmiyah?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الشيطان لكم عدو فاتخذوه عدوا إنما يدعو حزبه ليكونوا من أصحاب السعير.
Jazakallah for reading. Just want to outline one correction on this word, because the is one of the qalqala letters, so you need to make a little jerk on dal. So yad'u.
Yad'u.
Jazakallah. Other than that, was fine. You applied the noon mushaddad rule and the ishbaya rule very well. Jazakallah for that. ST, can I have another student now?
Yes, could I please request G4750 to unmute?
G4750.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الذين كفروا لهم عذاب شديد والذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات لهم مغفرة وأجر كبير.
Jazakallah, that was really good. You applied the ishbaya rule and the mim mushaddad rule as well. So which ishbaya stroke is this one on saw and ha?
It's the shad, right? So
it's the vertical fatha, right?
Yeah.
So vertical fatha is the fatha ishbaya. So that's why we prolong it for 2 seconds.
Yes.
Well done. You applied it really good. So just for everyone's information, this ruku on the right hand side means that this number 1 at the top means that we shows the number of ruku in the surah. So for example, this is the first ruku of Surah Al-Fatir. It shows that it's the first one. And the number in the middle, which is number 8, it shows the number of ayat in this ruku. that we are on verse number 8 at the moment. So this is showing verse 8. And this last number, number 13, shows the number of ruku in this part. So just wanted to make sure that you all know what this means. Jazakallah. I think now I will hand the mic over to the DT.
Jazakallah, Ahsanul Jaza. So let me just share my screen. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly recap today's lesson. Lesson was about Ishbaya rules. We learned about Fatha Ishbaya, which is when the stroke of Fatha is vertically placed over a letter, also called vertical Fatha. And then we learned about Kasra Ishbaya, when a stroke of Kasra is vertically placed below a letter, called vertical Kasra. And we also learned about Dhamma Ishbaya, when a stroke of simple Dhamma is placed invertedly over a letter, called inverted Dhamma. And all of these Ishbaya strokes should only be prolonged approximately for 2 seconds, counts, or beats. So we know inverted and vertical stroke for vowels are also called Ishbaya, as they stretch the sound of a letter for 2 seconds. So in the first example, Yadahu. Second example, Ayatihi. Mala'ahu. Moving on, we also practiced and revised about similar sounding letters, where we had thin letters, we had throat letters. Example, di, do. And then we also learned how to apply the 1 second and 2 second rule. 1 second rule was for short vowels, Fatha, Dhamma, Kasra, and 2 second rule was for the Ishbaya letters. So example over here, Wallahu alladhi la ilaha illa hu. So I'm doing waqf over here. And lastly, we learned about Ishbaya and Gunna letters. So both of them have to be prolonged for 2 seconds. But for Nun Gunna, we also have to prolong the nasal sound for 2 seconds. Bayan. And that was today's lesson. We are going to end our class with prayers, as we started our class with prayers. Can I request the ST to please pick a student for ending prayer?
Yes, could I please request G4755 to unmute?
G4755, Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Can you recite the prayer on the screen?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma anis wahshati fi qabri. Allahumma arhamni bil-Qur'anil azim. Waj'alhu li imaman wa nuran wa hudan wa rahmah. Allahumma zakkirni minhu ma nasitu wa allimni minhu ma jahiltu warzuqni tilawatahu ana al-layli wan nahar wah'alhu li hujjatan ya rabbal alamin. Ameen.
Jazakallah. Can you also recite the translation?
O Allah, dispel all my fears in my grave. O Allah, have mercy on me through the great Qur'an. Make it for me the leader, the light, the guidance, and the mercy. O Allah, remind me what I forget from it, and teach me what I do not know of it. Grant me its recitation during the hours of night and day, and make it a witness in my favor. O Lord of all the worlds, Amen.
Jazakallah. So you've recited very well. There were just some simple mistakes that I wanted to highlight. For example, as you can see, we have a vertical fatha, and you have learned how long do we prolong that for?
2 seconds.
2 seconds. So do you want to recite from these two words again?
Allahumma anis.
Okay, Jazakallah, good try. You have done the vertical fatha very good. The next thing I wanted to mention was about the mim ghunna. That's also again, we revised today. It needs to be stressed for 2 seconds. It's tashdid. So we'll recite it like Allahumma anis. Can you recite it, please?
Allahumma anis.
Very good. And over here, there was a mistake for waqf. As you know, if you do waqf, you will not pronounce the dhamma. It will change into a sakin letter. So it will be jahilt. Jahilt. Yeah. And over here, there was a mistake about jim. So it's waj'alhu li. Okay?
Yeah.
So, Jazakallah. So with this, our class for today ends. Inshallah, hope to see you in our next class. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.